Today marks the fourth day of March 2026, and without any doubt, this is shaping up to be one of the most important videos we have produced this year. What we are about to share with you is information that many people are still unaware of, and we are going to break it down in the simplest and clearest way possible so that every single person watching, listening, or reading can fully grasp the weight of what is happening right now. As things currently stand, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has taken a bold and historic step by submitting a formal list of documents directly to the federal government of Nigeria. To fully appreciate the significance of this moment, we need to remind ourselves of the background. When Kanu was sentenced to life imprisonment, Dave Umahi, who currently serves as the Minister of Works and previously served as the Governor of Ebonyi State, stood before Nigerians and confirmed publicly that active conversations were taking place between the federal government and Kanu's camp regarding the possibility of his release. That statement alone told the world that something significant was happening behind closed doors. Now, rather than waiting passively, Kanu has gone a step further. He has presented the federal government with his own formal set of conditions, a clear and structured list of demands that he expects the Nigerian government to address and fulfill before he will agree to walk out of Sokoto State Correctional Center. Think about what that means for a moment. This is a man who is currently behind bars, yet he is the one setting terms. He is the one telling the most powerful government in West Africa what it must do before he considers leaving his cell. That alone speaks volumes about the kind of leverage and international attention that surrounds this case. We are going to walk you through all 5 conditions contained in those documents, and we will examine each one carefully so you understand not just what is being asked, but why it matters and what it could mean for Nigeria going forward. Condition 1: Referendum. The very first condition that Kanu has placed on the table is the issue of a referendum, and this is perhaps the most foundational demand of them all. Kanu is insisting that the right to hold a referendum must be formally and permanently enshrined within the Nigerian constitution. He is not asking for a verbal promise or a temporary agreement that can be reversed the moment political winds shift. He wants it written into the constitution, which means it would become a protected legal right that no future government could simply erase with the stroke of a pen. The timing of this demand is particularly significant. Nigerian lawmakers are currently in the process of drafting a new constitution, which means there is an open and active opportunity to include this provision right now. Kanu and his supporters argue that this is the best and perhaps only window in a very long time to get referendum rights embedded into the foundational law of the country. Once the constitution is drafted and ratified, the opportunity closes, and getting such a provision added later would require a much more difficult and politically charged process. However, Kanu does not just want the referendum enshrined in the constitution. He has gone further by specifying that the execution of any such referendum must be overseen by recognized international bodies. This condition is rooted in a deep and widely shared distrust of Nigerian electoral institutions. Many Nigerians, particularly in the southeast, have witnessed what they describe as manipulated elections and compromised vote counting processes over the years. Kanu is essentially saying that he does not trust any Nigerian institution to count the votes for a referendum fairly and transparently. By demanding international supervision, he is seeking a level of credibility and legitimacy that would make the outcome of any referendum beyond dispute. The concept of a referendum, at its core, is straightforward. It is a democratic process through which the citizens of a country or region are given the opportunity to vote directly on a specific question. In this context, that question would be whether the people of the Southeast wish to remain part of Nigeria or whether they wish to establish their own independent nation. Kanu's position is that this decision should be made by the people themselves, peacefully and legally, rather than through conflict or criminalization. He argues that referendum is the legitimate and civilized pathway for self-determination, and that any peaceful agitation for it should be treated as a legal right rather than a criminal act. Condition 2: Deproscription of IPOB. The second condition moves directly to the status of the indigenous people of Biafra, widely known as IPOB. This organization was proscribed by the Nigerian government, meaning it was officially designated as a terrorist organization, a classification that Kanu and his supporters have consistently rejected and condemned as unjust and politically motivated. Kanu's second condition is centered entirely on revering that classification, and he has broken this demand down into 3 distinct parts. The first part is straightforward. He wants IPOB removed from the list of proscribed organizations immediately, before any other agreements are finalized or before he takes a single step out of detention. There can be no settlement in his view without this foundational step being taken first. The second part goes further. Kanu is not satisfied with a quiet administrative removal from the list. He wants the Nigerian government to make a formal and public address to the entire country and to the international community, explicitly stating that IPOB has been removed from the proscribed list and acknowledging that the original decision to add them was a mistake. This public admission matters deeply to Kanu because it would represent a significant shift in the official narrative surrounding IPOB and the broader Biafran movement. The third part of this condition is perhaps the most immediately impactful for thousands of families across the Southeast. Kanu is demanding the release of every individual who was arrested solely because of their association with or support of IPOB. These are people who were detained not because they committed acts of violence, but because they wore IPOB clothing, attended IPOB gatherings, expressed support for the organization online, or were otherwise connected to the group. Kanu's position is that these individuals should never have been arrested in the first place and that their continued detention is both unjust and unconstitutional. He wants them freed as part of any genuine settlement. Condition 3. Legal and judicial reforms. The third condition is perhaps the most legally complex and nuanced of the five, and it touches on matters that go far beyond Kanu's personal case. It addresses the broader question of how the Nigerian legal and judicial system treats political and separatist movements, and it calls for meaningful reform in that regard. At the personal level, Kanu is asking that the terrorism-related charges brought against him be either withdrawn entirely or at the very least subjected to a comprehensive review to ensure that they are in full compliance with the Nigerian constitution. He is not arguing that every legal proceeding against him should simply be erased without consideration. Rather, he is insisting that the charges must be examined honestly and that any that were brought outside the bounds of constitutional law must be addressed accordingly. One of the most powerful elements of this third condition is Kanu's demand that the Nigerian government officially and formally recognize that his 2021 rendition from Kenya was illegal. For context, Kanu was captured in Kenya under circumstances that he and his legal team have described as a violation of international law and diplomatic protocol. He was brought to Nigeria without going through any proper extradition process, and many legal scholars and human rights organizations have raised serious concerns about how that rendition was handled. Kanu wants President Tinubu's government to go on record publicly and officially, acknowledging that what happened in 2021 was unlawful. That acknowledgement would carry enormous symbolic and legal weight, both within Nigeria and on the international stage. Beyond his personal situation, Kanu is also calling for his release to be handled not as a simple criminal pardon, but as part of a broader political settlement. He does not want to be presented to the world as a man who is simply forgiven by a magnanimous government. He wants the resolution of his case to be recognized for what it is, namely a political resolution to a political dispute. Finally, he is calling for a genuine commitment to judicial reform in Nigeria, recognizing that the problems his case has exposed are not unique to him but reflect deeper systemic issues within the Nigerian justice system. Condition 4. Security and demilitarization. The fourth condition addresses what Kanu and many residents of the Southeast describe as the excessive militarization of their region. Over the years, military operations have been a constant presence in the Southeast, and many communities have reported significant abuses, property destruction, civilian casualties, and a general climate of fear and intimidation. Kanu's fourth condition is a direct response to this reality. He is calling for the federal government to significantly reduce or completely withdraw military operations from the southeastern states. His argument is simple and direct. The people of the Southeast are capable of maintaining peace and security in their own communities without the heavy hand of military presence that they have experienced for years. He believes that the militarization of the region has done more to inflame tensions than to resolve them, and that genuine peace requires pulling back that military footprint. Kanu is also calling for a thorough and transparent review of specific military operations that took place in the Southeast, with particular attention to operations like Operation Python Dance II. That operation, which was carried out during a particularly tense period in the region, resulted in deaths and injuries among civilians, and Kanu wants every aspect of what happened during that operation to be investigated fully and honestly, with appropriate consequences for any wrongdoing that is uncovered.